concept of a solo Black Widow film dates back to 2004, but the real efforts to produce a film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe didn't really start until the Avengers in 2012. However, executives within Marvel Studios were split as to what sort of film should Black Widow be in terms of which actors or actresses were to star in the feature, as well as the portrayal of Black Widow as a character from the films to the solo adaptation for Black Widow. Despite the fact that Marvel Studios originally planned for a 1st of May release in 2020, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the scheduling was shifted to the 29th of June 2021. And due to this change in release, the time of exact release was more than a year after Marvel had originally planned. With a budget of $200 million, it earned $379 million in ticket sales. When released, according to information now known, the film did slightly better than what was expected for a film due to theaters globally being affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, and was praised due to the very premise of the film, as many casual audiences of Marvel films were actually very open-minded to the concept of a solo Black Widow film. As in prior films to feature Black Widow, traits or details of the character were left intentionally vague by Marvel, as these details were in part explained with the film. However, the most divisive aspects or details of the film in discussion had to do with the serious changes in character for Taskmaster. When questioned about why the film version of Taskmaster deviates so much from the comic version, is that Marvel executives didn't necessarily want a dark and foreboding villain, as theories had that originally Black Widow was supposed to be released soon after Avengers Endgame, so the mood among casual audiences with Endgame in mind were thought to be somewhat tired of a truly evil villain, or characters of an evil nature to be pitted against heroes and heroines. Nearly every detail of Taskmaster in the Black Widow film heavily changed from the comic version, as comic book readers commented that the only details that were remotely, if at all, similar would have been the costume or outward appearance of the Taskmaster. It was also interesting to notice that most of the complaints came from viewers whom had already known the details of the comic version of Taskmaster, or even stories that had featured the character from Marvel Comics, while casual audiences were more understanding or even accepting of the film's adaptation for the character of Taskmaster. Praise for the character ironically came from Marvel Studios' decision to make the character a somewhat tragic character or victim of circumstances, tying into Black Widow's own origins and circumstances as depicted, and in relation to her Russian background, her quote-unquote family as depicted in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It's also now known that the dislike for the film, as well as the villainess of the Taskmaster, were from the details and facts that the COVID-19 pandemic undeniably affected public perception of the film. And further details had it that later in 2021, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings was released to much praise and equally as much revenue. So the argument against the pandemic affecting Black Widow's sales or perceptions in theaters is valid, but at the same time irrelevant. Opinions further were that the details of Taskmaster could change with further appearances of the character through actual encounters or further developed lore in various forms throughout future Marvel films. So if popular opinion about the film's portrayal had negative and lasting impressions, it could or would change to suit something more similar to the comics, or even what people or what audiences want to see with the Marvel Cinematic Universe's version of Taskmaster. A character can be overrated yet hated because film producers thought an original depiction of a character would have been preferred by film audiences. When that didn't happen, they left the future of the character for others to decide at a later time.